Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Good martinis for conservatives today. Jim, you weren't kidding yesterday. We've gone from apocalyptic to bizarre to all good in just a couple of days here. So things are definitely heading in the right direction.
Always look on the bright side of life. For all the Life of Brian fans out there.
All right, on to the good martini now. And, of course, the political posturing and the jockeying from both sides continues just a few days after the unfortunate passing of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Yesterday, the president meeting the press at the Asia-Pacific Summit out there in California. And he was talking very much at length about how it's very important for the Constitution to be followed here. It's very clear that the Constitution says that as long as he's the president, it's up to the president to nominate a replacement to the Supreme Court, and it's up to the Senate to give that nominee a fair hearing and to give them an up or down vote. And among other questions, one of the reporters there followed up with this question, which the president clearly had no answer for.
How do you respond to Republican criticism that your position is undercut by the fact that you and other members of your administration who were in the Senate at the time tried to filibuster Judge Alito in 2006?
Look, I think what's fair to say is that how judicial nominations have evolved over time is not historically the fault of any single party. This has become just one more extension of politics.
He was obviously so busted on that.
Simply put, that was then and this is now. And it's not wrong when I do it. Because my appointees are way cooler. That's why. First of all, kudos to the media for actually getting that question in there. There really isn't a good excuse. There isn't a good explanation. And that's one of the, it's typically, hypocritical when people insist, you can't do to us what we did to you. I had fun this morning when I pointed out that the New York Times back in 1987, the Robert Bork nomination, for those like Elizabeth Warren who are saying, wait a minute, the American people did get a say in their Supreme Court nominees. They made their voice heard in the 2012 election. Here's what the New York Times wrote back then. The president's supporters insist vehemently that having won the 1984 election, he has every right to change the court's direction. Yes, but the Democrats won the 1986 election, regaining control of the Senate, and they have every right to resist. This is not the same Senate that confirmed William Rehnquist as Chief Justice and Antonin Scalia as an Associate Justice last year. Well, if that's the case, I guess it's okay for Republicans to do everything to resist the Obama nominations because they won control of the Senate. Why would the 2014 midterms not be considered a national referendum on what kind of justices they want, but the 2012 presidential election would be? And there isn't really a good excuse for this. So it's just a lot of fun to watch Democrats sweating about this and their past positions coming back to haunt them.
Also funny, Jim, that shortly after the president stammered his way through that particular response, he went on to say that his opposition wasn't the same because ultimately Judge Alito got on the court. just the fact that his filibuster failed, completely changes the narrative here. But history just seems to jump up and bite the Democrats. Hillary liking to pretend that you can't go back and check on things that she said or did back in the 90s. And now the New York Times obviously coming on the different side of this compared to what happened with the Bork nomination back in 1987. History and records always on the side of conservatives, it seems like, or at least most of the time.
Ultimately, the argument in almost every Supreme Court fight is, I should get my guys, but you're not allowed to get your guys. And that is the core principle of these debates.
All right, on to the second good martini now. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday as a result of Hillary Clinton lowering expectations and saying Nevada's a lot whiter than people give it credit for. And that really upset Harry Reid because he likes Nevada being at the early end of the primary and caucus list because of its great diversity. Well, now we know why Hillary Clinton is lowering those expectations. A new CNN ORC poll basically shows we've got another caucus dead heat headed our way this weekend. Hillary's at 48%, Bernie Sanders at 47%. Jim, this was supposed to be the Western firewall. She's got the Southern firewall. Lots of firewalls that's not stopping a lot of fire, it seems like.
keep in mind, of course, she's still way ahead in the delegate race, thanks to those lovely, election skewing superdelegates. But, Hillary's firewalls keep burning down, which is not what firewalls are supposed to do. We don't know exactly how it's going to shake out, but at this point, it doesn't look like Nevada is going to be this safety line there. And, the next line after that is South Carolina. And, oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders is starting to inch up amongst African Americans in that state. Hillary Clinton is a really weak candidate. And there's this new ad out from Bernie Sanders. It features Eric Garner's daughter and people who are not, whether or not you like Bernie Sanders, this is exactly the message. It's probably going to be a torpedo under the waterline against Hillary Clinton. And we are looking like it's going to be a long, ugly, and tough divisive fight in the Democratic primary with no guarantee that Hillary Clinton's going to win. And Greg, all I can say is, man, pass the popcorn.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Of course, Hillary Clinton, after initially planning to distance herself from the president, now just clinging like crazy to his coattails, if there are any coattails left, saying she would be a continuation and to build on everything the president has done, from health care to the economy and all these sorts of other things, that if you like President Obama, you're going to love Hillary Clinton. And basically it's her way of trying to beef up her support in the minority community, because she's apparently got no chance among white people, as we talked about yesterday. But now this is not necessarily a good idea either, because as you point out in the Morning Jolt today, Bill Press, folks could probably remember him. He was on CNN's Crossfire. He's kind of bounced around on the cable shows over the years. He's also a left-wing radio talk show host. And he's got a new book out called Buyer's Remorse: How Obama Let Progressives Down. We voted for hope and change, Mr. President, but what did we get? The answers are saddening. Stagnant wages, a struggling middle class, rising income inequality, and a diminished social safety net. And it goes on to say in this review that you have from Kyle Smith that the Affordable Care Act pleased few. Obama lied when he said everybody could keep their plan and their doctor. And for all the promises to abandon the Bush-Cheney policy, if anything goes in the war on terror, Obama would, for the most part, not only continue down that same path, but expand it. They also didn't even like the stimulus plan. So, Jim, Hillary's coalition getting a little bit pinched here, and looks like riding the Obama coattails might not work well for her, and it could be another boon for Bernie Sanders.
Greg, I don't know about you. I can't remember the last time I said, wow, I really want to read that book by that liberal author. Right? And what's interesting is it's not like, it sounds like he ends with the traditional, oh, Obama was a disappointment because he wasn't left enough. And, oh, I understand the closing message is Bernie Sanders, just be yourself. It's a huge step to see a progressive acknowledging the economy has not recovered. It is a huge step to see progressives acknowledging that the stimulus didn't work. It is a huge step to see a progressive acknowledging Obamacare is this giant disappointment that was sold to the American people with lies. Right? These are all arguments we've been making for years now. And Obama and his fans, by and large, said, no, there's no truth to that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not listening. My fingers are in your ears. Blah, 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 blah. And here we are. And we're near at the end of the Obama presidency, and they're suddenly realizing he didn't do what they thought he was going to do. Now, I'd like to look at this as a giant teachable moment, Greg. That, if you suddenly realize this guy overpromised and underdelivered and didn't really know what he was doing and didn't pay attention to the details and just kind of, was walking around in this bubble of ego gratification, why are you totally convinced that Bernie Sanders is going to do a way better job? What is it in Bernie Sanders' record? Oh, no, he's a much better manager. He's a guy who's really detail-oriented. He's a guy who's thought through all the consequences. You realize, oh, my goodness, he was only about hope and change and these gauzy, happy talk, and he was in a bubble of denial. Why do you think Bernie Sanders is totally different? Is it the hair? Is it this? Is it the accent? What makes you think you're going to get completely different results from Bernie Sanders? But I'd be very happy to have that discussion in the coming year. You'd like to think that after a while, progressives would start to realize this. They have this utopian vision that is never going to happen because government doesn't work the way you think it does. They think, oh, give people health care, and they think it's going to happen, and they think deadlines will be met and budgets will be met, and everything goes according to plan. Looking forward to reading that book and seeing. Quoting it at length to folks who are fans of Obama and saying, look, if you think the economy is doing great, stimulus worked, Obamacare is great, take it up with that arch-conservative right-wing maniac, Bill Press.
Jim, I know today wasn't supposed to have any bizarro in it, but in less than a week, we have the Republican frontrunner saying George W. Bush is responsible for not stopping 9/11, and he lied to get us into the Iraq War, and that Planned Parenthood does wonderful things outside of the abortions, and a lockstep liberal saying that Obamacare was a major disaster, and so is the stimulus, and basically the economy stinks all the way around. So good luck figuring it all out, everyone.
We ended up being depressing by the end of it Wednesday, so don't worry. That's the hemlock chaser for the 3 good martinis we had today.
I guess so. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and be sure to tune in again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.